The morning sun poured warm gold across my farmland, lighting up the dew-soaked grass like scattered glass. The air smelled like clean soil and freedom, the kind of quiet peace you'll never find packed between suburban driveways. I was leaning on the fence with a hot mug in hand when the crunch of tires on gravel snapped my calm in half. I looked up and froze. There she was, Karen, mid-50s, hairstyle to defy physics, sunglasses mirroring the world she believed she controlled. Behind the wheel of a spotless SUV, she didn't just wander onto my land. She glided in like she'd signed a lease. Morning, I called, forcing myself to stay casual. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of seeing me startled. Her window slid down, and the voice that shot out could have sliced sheet metal. You can't just block my access, neighbor. HOA rules. I lifted a hand, stopping her rant short. Hold on. You think you can park here on my property? Pretty sure the deed says otherwise. She squinted at me, irritation tightening her jaw. This is a community road. You can't restrict it. Community road? I repeated, my tone calm but iron solid. You're standing on private land. I own this entire farm. No HOA covenant reaches out here. Her face flushed, and she slammed the horn like it owed her money. I'm calling the cops. I rested against the fence again, hiding the grin fighting its way up. Go ahead, I said. Inside, my stomach twisted, not from fear, but from that surreal buzz you get when life hands you a scene straight out of a drama series. See, most folks don't know this about me. Most folks don't realize the victim in their HOA battle is also the sheriff. Her phone was already out, fingers hammering the screen with frantic urgency. Hello? Yes, this is an emergency. I watched her go through the whole performance, a blend of disbelief and dark humor swirling inside me. She truly had no clue what she was stepping into, and for a moment I felt a flicker of guilt. Should I let her dig this deep a hole? But the clean morning breeze, the low rumble of my tractor somewhere out back, and her own blazing self-importance kept me rooted. She was so wrapped up in her panic call that she didn't even notice the no parking sign I'd put up the day before. Big, bold, rustic, absolutely official. I tilted my head toward it, letting the message hang there. But she didn't catch on. As she fumbled with her phone, another sound rolled across the yard, a steady, low growl drifting from the barn's shadow. My dogs had clocked her attitude. Not aggressive, just alert. The air thickened, heavy enough to taste, and that's when she climbed out her SUV, heels clicking on gravel like a fuse burning toward detonation. I pushed off the fence. Oh, this is going to be interesting, I muttered. Her heels kept clicking closer, each sharp tap echoing like a countdown to chaos. I fought back a smile, but the absurdity hit me full force. Here she was, ready to wage war over a parking spot on land she didn't own, and she still had no clue who she was actually dealing with. Do you see this? She snapped, jabbing a finger toward the freshly painted no parking sign. This is illegal. The HOA rules clearly. I lifted a hand again, calmer than I had any right to be in a showdown like this. Karen, this is an HOA lane. It's my farm. I pay taxes on every inch of it. The cows over there might have something to say if you wander too close. Her nostrils flared, a huge exhale nearly sending my chickens into a panic. You're insane. I'll have the cops here in minutes. Perfect, I said, arms folding. Funny thing, I am the cop. Her jaw dropped so fast, I thought it might hit the gravel. The phone almost slipping from her hands. What are you talking about? I'm the sheriff of this county. So yes, you called the cops on me on my land. A beat passed. Then slowly her brain seemed to catch up to her mouth. That's not possible, I demand. Karen, breathe. I interrupted gently, though a sarcasm laced the words like barbed wire. You're on private property. You're breaking the law just by ignoring the signs. You're lucky I'm the law and the patient won today. Her hands trembled. I think for the first time the fear that she wasn't the alpha in this scenario hit her. Her perfect hair had started toe sag with frustration. She looked around, probably searching for witnesses. Any sort of validation from invisible neighbors. There was none. Just me, my dogs, and the cows judging us both. Then she did it. Classic Karen maneuver. She turned on the charm offensive, voice quivering but sharp. "Sheriff, I just IRL think this is unfair. Maybe we can compromise." I shook my head slowly, savoring the moment. Compromise? Let me make it simple. Your SUV stays in your driveway next time. Or you find somewhere else to park. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced back at her SUV, back at me, then at the sign that now seemed to mock her. It was like watching a battle of wills, except the battlefield was a quiet farm, and the general at one side happened to be holding the ultimate power card. She opened her mouth again, then paused, realizing maybe the battle wasn't going to go her way after all. I could feel the tension spike thick enough to chew. And then, as if on cue, the faint wail off a siren in the distance made both Ophis freeze. The siren was faint at first, a wail in the distance that barely registered over the ambient farm noises. Birds chirping, cows mooing, the distant of the tractor. It all blended into the background, until suddenly the sound became very real. Karen's eyes widened Nita's as she just realized the gravity of the situation, and for a fleeting moment I saw her ego crack. You called them," she stammered, the color draining from her face. I shook my head, a dry smile tugging at my lips. "No, Karen, you did. You called the cops, and well, I'm the cops." Her phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands. She looked around wildly, like she was hoping some hidden backup would magically appear from the HOA board. No one came, just the open fields, the barn, and me leaning against the fence with a smug calm that I could feel radiating across the gravel. Then the siren got louder, approaching fast, and I tensed slightly, not because I was worried, but because the situation was about to escalate in ways Karen hadn't imagined. My deputy cruiser pulled up at the end of the driveway, lights flashing softly but ominously. I stepped forward, arms out, motioning to Karen. "Ma'am," I said calm and professional, "everything's under control. You're on private property. There's no emergency here." She froze mid-step, phone still in hand, voice shaking. This isn't right. I have rights. HOA rights. Community rights." He held up a hand, suppressing a laugh that, "Let's make one thing perfectly clear. HOA rights stop at the edge of your property. You're on mine, and I enforce the law here, not the rules in some pamphlet." Her jaw dropped again, and I noticed a subtle quiver of fear in her hands. She was trying to figure out a way to wriggle out of the mess she created, but every option in her mental Rolodex was failing. Then she did the classic Karen panic pivot. "I demand, no, I will file a complaint." I stepped closer, voice calm, but pointed. "Please, Ito, I encourage it. Just remember, you're filing a complaint against the sheriff on my farm about parking against the law. Think that through while I finish my coffee." Her phone slipped from her hands. The siren got louder still, but before I could revel further in the moment, Karen did something unexpected. She ran, full sprint, heels and all, back to her SUV that I watched her bused. But as she climbed in, slammed the door, and turned the engine over, a strange sense of unease crept in. Something told me this won't end here. She was cornered, humiliated, and furious. And Karen, in that state, dangerous. The tires squealed, and the car lurched forward straight toward the barn. The screech off tires on gravel made my heart skip a beat, though mostly from disbelief, not fear. Karen's SUV wasn't just moving, it was charging. A misguided battering ram aimed straight at the barn. My dogs barked furiously, circling her vehicle, their hackles raised like they knew the absurdity of the situation. I dropped my coffee cup, shattering it against the gravel, and ran toward the barn side. "Karen, stop. This is private property." I shouted, trying to inject some authority through the rising chaos. She didn't ease up, her face twisted between panic and righteous fury, like a cartoon villain suddenly realizing that consequences are, in fact, real. Her phone was still death-gripped in one hand, finger hovering as if she could summon backup that did not exist. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am," I bellowed, finally snapping into my real sheriff voice, the one that stops people mid-meltdown even when their senses fully abandon them. She laughed, high-pitched and unhinged, the kind of sound only a Karen in her final form could produce. "You can't tell me what to do." I. Her rant cut off when she slammed the brakes too late. The SUV skidded, gravel spraying like shrapnel as it screeched to a halt mere inches from the barn wall. The impact was more noise and damage, but her chest heaved like she'd sprinted a mile. I walked toward her window slowly, every step intentional. My hands were empty, but my presence carried both the weight of the badge and decades of experience defusing disasters before they became tragedies. "Listen," I said, voice low but steady. "You've jumped from trespassing to reckless endangerment. This is your final warning." Her fingers shook against the wheel. I could practically see the internal gears grinding, the frantic mental gymnastics trying to rationalize herself back into control. Finally, she muttered, barely audible, I just wanted to park on my property." "On your property?" I raised an eyebrow. "You could have asked, or parked in your own driveway. Instead, you decided to test the sheriff's patience and my barn's structural integrity." Her complexion drained. She knew she crossed a line no HOA newsletter or passive-aggressive email could erase. I motioned toward the road. "Back it up slow. No stunts." She complied, tires crunching with the cautious retreat of a wild animal realizing the trap is real. My dogs eased back, but stayed tightly on alert, as invested in the drama as I was. When her SUV finally disappeared around the bend, I exhaled and leaned against the barn. My heart still hammered as I mentally tallied the paperwork this fiasco would require. But one fact lingered with chilling clarity. Karen wasn't done. A Karen never retreats. She reloads. From the tree lean, a shadow shifted, another vehicle rolling in, and this time it didn't look like it came seeking friendly conversation. The shadow grew as a black SUV rumbled down the gravel drive toward the house. My stomach tightened, not in fear, but in anticipation. Karen's retreat was never permanent. In her mind, she always had reinforcements, whether that meant the HOA board, a lawyer, or pure ego manifested on wheels. Sure enough, the new SUV, a big, tinted window beast, rolled to stop. A man in a crisp polo stepped out, clipboard in hand, looking like he'd just left a cubicle presentation on assertive communication strategies. He surveyed the scene, then locked eyes with me. "Sheriff," he began carefully, "I'm with the HOA. We received a complaint regarding improper use of property." I blinked, absorbing the audacity. Improper use of my property. Improper use of my land? I asked, "I own this farm. You're standing on it. HOA rules don't apply here. And if you're looking to issue trespassing citations, you're late to the party." He swallowed. We were told that, well, the area was restricted. I cut him off, arms sweeping toward the acres behind me. Restricted for who? The cows? Because trust me, they don't care. You're literally on private farmland, trying to enforce rules written for cul-de-sacs. Karen's SUV edged back into view, her face plastered to the window like a hawk hunting weakness. She looked enraged and cornered all at once. My dogs growled low, feeding off the spiking tension. I just want a fair solution." Karen shrilled, voice cracked and frantic. "This is harassment. Illegal harassment." I sighed, already envisioning the HOA emails and shaky cell phone videos destined for social media. "Karen, harassment requires a victim. That'd be me if you rammed my barn again." The HOA guy shuffled awkwardly, scribbling on his clipboard like the right form could magically create jurisdiction. But the truth was simple. He had no authority here. Karen's eyes darted from barn to me to the HOA rep, and then she made a move so bold I had to stop and watch. She stormed toward the barn, phone raised, muttering about evidence and documentation, as if volume alone could bend reality. I leaned against the fence, watching her strut like she ruled a kingdom she most definitely did not own. Yet beneath the absurdity, a prickle of concern crawled up my spine. Karen wasn't just unhinged, she was calculating now. Before I could intervene, she lifted her phone, finger hovering over a contact labeled local news. The device hung in her hand like a loaded weapon, her finger trembling above the call button. Instinct told me this wasn't about parking anymore. This was about spectacle. I sighed, dragging a hand through my hair. Some days being sheriff meant managing chaos in heels. "Karen," I said calmly but firmly. You're on private property. Calling the media won't change that. You want headlines? Fine, but you won't like how the story ends. She glared, jaw clenched, finger hovered like a hawk ready to strike. You can't. People will hear about this. I stepped closer, letting years of authority settle into my voice. They will, and they'll hear the truth, that you drove onto someone else's land, ignored signage, and tried to call reinforcements on the sheriff who owns the property. That's the story. Her hands shook, and for the first time panic fully surfaced. She glanced at the HOA guy, who now looked like he regretted every decision that put him here. Even her phone seemed to weigh her arm down. And then, classic Karen meltdown. She smashed her phone against the dashboard, spun on her heel, and stomped her SUV. Tires screamed as she tore off my land like a warlord defeated at the border. My dogs barked, chasing the dust she kicked up, while Clipboard Man stood frozen in pure existential dread. I leaned against the barn door, exhaling. The adrenaline drained away, leaving relief, disbelief, and the quiet hum of the farm reclaiming its morning. Miraculously, my half-full coffee still waited on the fence post, warm and forgiving. I stood there listening to the rhythm of the farm. Wind through leaves, lowing cows, my dogs patting back. Peace settled again. Complete, familiar, mine. I shook my head, a dry grin forming. Some people, I muttered, just don't get boundaries. Then from the driveway's edge, I spotted something. Faint tire tracks leading the direction Karen had vanished. Bold, stubborn, predictable. I smiled. She might come back, or she might not. But one thing was certain, I'd won today. And the farm, my farm, would stay just the way I intended. I sipped my coffee, savoring the taste of victory. The screen would fade to black. But the story, my friends, far from over. If this hit home, tap like, because courage matters when regular folks push back. Subscribe to Karen's Hub for more true justice. And drop a comment. How would you handle a Karen who thinks she owns the world?